Greetings, Patrick here. Welcome to Eight Questions with, and glad you're here with us on a very beautiful Tuesday evening here in southeastern Michigan. It is spectacular today. Started off with heavy rain, and then sun came out for a couple of seconds, then clouded over, and now it's just perfect. So, what else is perfect? Well, our guest. Our guest is actress and writer Mindy Daugherty will be here with us, and we're going to be talking to her about her films. She is also a published writer, and we'll talk to her about that as well. Looking forward to talking to her about that. You know us, we love to talk to writers. It's a real treat. I love actors. I definitely love actors. I love directors, as you guys all know. But I really like the writers. So she has written two books. She's written one about her time in the military, and she's also written a kids book. So we're looking forward to talking to her about that. She's got some really good movies too that we're going to dig into. Because she's worked with several people that we know. Mindy has worked with Mike Ferguson. He's worked with Robert Lasardo. Worked with Brandon Slagle. So she's riding in good company. That's for sure. So we'll be talking to her about her new movie that's coming out or getting ready to launch, The Killer Pizza Man, which is going to be directed by Will Colazo Jr. as well. So we're going to have a lot of fun. That's for sure. It is Eric. Eric is here. All right, let's give it up for Eric. That's right. That's right. I'm very excited I want to know if Eric saw this or not, but they have a preview for a new movie. No sharks. No sharks. Okay. First of all, I just want to say that right now, no sharks in this movie, but it is screaming at us. It's called Hungry, and it's about a killer hippo. Hell to the yes. We are all about that. Of course, I don't think that Hungry Hippo will be out in time for Sharks versus Schlock, the summer edition. So that might have to wait till the winter edition of Sharks versus Schlock. But rest assured that Hippo will be making its way through Sharks and Schlock. That's for sure. I just don't know when. But it's not a shark movie. So I'm thinking to myself that he's probably going to really like this because, he likes a good creature feature. Speaking of fun, I went to the library today. Man, I think this has probably been the best month I've had at the library ever. The culling of the titles that the library has dropped, it's insane. Absolutely insane. You guys have been following its last three hauls. Absolutely nuts. Today was the same. I didn't go last week. You guys probably, I don't know if you guys noticed it or not, but I didn't go last week. That's why there was no haul video. But I went this week and I said, well, what did I miss out on? Because the last time I missed Thunderbolts. And they said, no, there was nothing on the shelf. It was bone dry. So we're back. Hey, Lady Valerie. I'm glad you're here. So we went in today, and the library person said that there were a lot of foreign films in today. Now she said just foreign films. There's a lot of Bollywood films, a lot of and she didn't go into detail. She just said there's a lot of Indian films. So we thought that there'd be just someone had donated a collection again. So I was like, okay, that's awesome. We'll see. I'm still looking for RRR. I still haven't found it yet. So I said, okay. So the doors open up. We all go in. The library is culling out their foreign films section. Holy crow. So the video's already out. So you guys can go over and check that out. But what an amazing haul today. Found some ISC films. I'm getting my cut, getting my lawn cut. That's all the noise. That's where the noise is coming from. So, uh, yikes. I know it is 8 o'clock, almost 8 o'clock here, and he's this guy's still out there stacking money. Can't blame him though. So so we got a ton of movies today. I think I paid $8.75, just insane amount of boutique stuff, some Criterion, a lot of ISC Midnight. Um, I found Final Days, which is an extremely hard movie to find, for what I understand. That's like Cocoon. It's like trying to find Cocoon or finding Final Days. It's next to impossible out in the wild. And I found a copy of it finally after years. I'm talking about years. It was one of the movies that I was looking for when I lived in San Jose. San Jose, because it came out in '97, and I have friends in the movie. I have friends who in a band called Diatribe, and they contributed the song to the movie. I worked with them several times at Marsugi's, and I have another friend of mine named Carrie who was also in the film as well. And so it was really, I was always wanting to find that movie. And this is before, like I said, this is before I moved here. The movie came out, I think, '97, and it was really, yeah, it was fun. It was a really good day. Uh, yes, I definitely know the way to San Jose. That's for sure. Um, so yeah, I was tickled to death. I was tickled to death. So back to Mindy, because that's who we're waiting for, and we're waiting for eagerly. I hope you guys, some of the movies that she's done. Let me tell you, gang, this is the kind of actress that we love getting on the show here, because she does nothing but horror and action, and who doesn't love that? And you know what? She looks like she can handle some business. Let me tell you. You saw the picture of her before I came on here. I mean, she's a beautiful girl for sure, but she's also got that killer look in her eye, you can look but you can't touch, or if you do touch, you'll come back stumpy. I just love that persona, because she's going to be playing badasses in the films that she's in. There won't be any. Can we kill you first? There won't be any of that with Mindy. That's for sure. Um, all right. So the movie we're going to be talking about today, so she's got some movies coming up here. And actually, I was looking at the upcoming movies, and there's a good question there. I've never asked a director before, but maybe I'll ask Mindy this question, see if she has any input on it. But the movie we're going to be talking about today, besides the movies that she's already worked on, is the new one called The Killer Pizza Man, and it's going to be interesting because I've seen the poster for the movie. It's an AI poster. Man, I can't believe I'm actually saying this, but that AI poster for a creature feature, supernatural horror like this, I I didn't hate it. I mean, because to me, just like a trailer and a good poster helps sells the movie. It really does. If you have a really crappy poster, and or your trailer is subpar, tells everything that's going to happen in the movie, people will stay away from that. They'll remember that, and they will respond to that. Same thing with rock albums. One of the things I used to talk to the bands, local bands. They come in there, and believe me, I have no idea why. I really don't. But for all of us talent buyers, they would always come to each one of us and ask questions about their record. I didn't play, and I still don't play an instrument. I have no idea how to play an instrument. I just know what works. And one of the things that got me was telling a band is to make sure the cover of the album cover is a good one. Don't be one of those crayons or stick figures, or I mean, if you're gonna when you budget your money out for your recording, let's say you have $1,000, make damn sure at least $200 of that goes to marketing, and that means put a damn good cover on your music, on your CD. but it's punk rock. Yeah, and it'll be punk rock, but it's still sitting in the shelves, a year from now. All right, the doorbell has rang, so let's go get Mindy and let's go talk all things some horror and some books. Ta-da.
Hi, how are you?
Good evening. Good. Very nice meeting you.
Nice to meet you too. Thank you.
You and I have a lot of friends in common, I have discovered.
Nice. It's always nice when you can have a lot of commonalities.
I was looking over your body of work and I saw that. I'm going like, oh my gosh, we're in such good company.
Okay.
You've worked with a lot of people that I know and respect, and actually have been on the show.
Oh, great.
So now, have you ever been interviewed before? Since as an actress or as an author, have you been interviewed?
I have a few, more than a few times.
Okay. Yeah. Where do you get interviewed more for your writing or for your acting?
Well, that's an interesting question. I think right now, I mostly on the films, and then I kind of trickle in with my writing, mostly because it's important for me to get what I have to say out as well as get these books out. Because the reason I wrote these books ended up taking a whole bigger turn than I ever thought. Like my children's book is now in over 5 police departments, 6 different states. Sorry, 6 different uh, police departments in 5 different states. It's at the Child and Safety Alliance and the Alabama Sex Trafficking and Child Safety Alliance, as well as my autobiography. So before COVID happened, I wanted to do basically do like a kind of a tour and do a book tour and, go around talking. And the moment that I was supposed to speak the next day at this high school, COVID hit. So it kind of went downhill from there. But my book, I feel, has touched a lot of people. And I noticed that when they come back to me, especially the people that know me, they're like, oh my gosh, I would have never guessed you went through all that in reading your book. And a lot of people say it was a hard read, not because it's difficult to read, but it's hard because they know me, and
Right.
hearing the things that had happened to me struck a chord with many. But I'm really glad about that too, because I've inspired other people to write their own books from different countries. I've, people in Australia, the UK, and England, Australia, and it's in Ireland as well. So it's been really nice to have a broad base of people that like to follow me and end up doing what they want to do as well. So I'm really proud of both books. I'm mostly proud of getting them accomplished and actually getting them out, and as well as getting them into the places that I've wanted to. And the next step I want to do is create an animation with the children's book, so that if people can't read, or they, don't understand how to read, or that even if they know how to read and they don't understand what they're reading, to basically put it on television so that way they get a better understanding about it. And then I want to change and turn my book, Resilient Warrior, into a movie or a series, so that people can break through their barriers, or, get through the depression, get through anxiety, PTSD, as well as people that have been through trauma, and helping them understand that there is a lifehood after the traumatic events. And there is a therapeutic approach that we can create in healing, the healing modalities. And I've tried multiple different ways of healing. So I feel like I have a lot to offer when it comes to teaching people how to heal, both on their own and with help. Because I don't think we really go through this life not needing anybody's help. There's a lot of people that are like, I could do it on my own. Great. I challenge you to ever do anything all on your own. It just doesn't work
Right.
that way.
No, I mean, every day, even in everyday life, unless you're holed up in your house, um, everyday life, you're going to run across somebody who's going to help you on in some way, whether it be
Right.
a cashier or a gas station, person, or, someone helping you at the hardware store. So you're always going to run across people
Correct.
who are offering to help you. You're not going to do it yourself.
Correct.
Um, Now, you mentioned about resilient warrior. That's because you served in the military, right?
So actually, resilient warrior is overcoming the abuse. And people say that I have a very strong look on this one. It was mostly just putting out, strength is just one part of it. But going through the trauma events or the traumatic events that I've gone through and still being alive, most people would have maybe one or two of the traumatic events happen in their lifehood. And I've been told by many people, like, there's so much trauma that has happened in my life. It didn't jade me. I was angry for a very long time, don't get me wrong. However, moving through those traumas and still having the ability to want to help other people has been mostly my call. And I feel like almost like these events happened to me so that I could show people or teach people that it's not about the events. It's how we push through those events and how we work our lives and where we go with those modalities, and I've also learned that there's onion layers of us, right? So basically, when we have an onion layer, we're peeling those off layer by layer. And sometimes we think that we've gotten deep enough to where we're fine for a while. And then all of a sudden, PTSD or something happens in our life where it just kind of triggers up those events. And it's like, wow, you know what? I thought I dealt with all this. When in reality, maybe I ignored certain pieces or got into a point where I didn't want to talk about it anymore. So I shoved it down a little further, or I disassociated from those things and acted like I was fine, until I peeled back those layers and was realizing that, wow, I still have a long way to go. And I feel like at this point, I feel like I've come to full circle. I mean, I really feel like I've done most of the therapies that are available at this point in time. There is something called ibogaine and other things that are coming available. Hopefully, the United States gets to study those. I know Trump just signed an action for psychedelics as well as ibogaine. Ibogaine is an African plant that has been helping many of the Navy SEALs and many of the people that are in the military that have severe PTSD from going to Afghanistan and Iraq multiple times. So I kind of want to try that, and other than that, I mean, I've tried stem cells for the pain and stuff like that, and it helps for a little bit, but then you still have to keep going. It's kind of like the engine oil in your car. You don't get to do it just like once in your lifetime. You get to you do it a couple times.
Right.
And so, and between that and then writing my children's book, which is A Dragon's Voice, this kind of teaches kids lessons of, don't steal. What I do has an effect on you and myself as well, and how to make friends and create friends. And then the biggest lesson of that whole thing is to listen to your intuition. And this is where I teach parents, to have an open conversation with their children, such as you don't want to approach a stranger and let him like take nude photos of you. You don't want to go find puppies with him. You don't want to go have some candy with him. Like, these are the things that I talk to parents about and have them have an open discussion once they've read the book. And then the reason I wanted it in police departments is so that once these kids are either getting interviewed or right after they're getting interviewed, gosh, there's so much stress with them. And so to ease that stress and to calm their nervous system down, I want them to have a book that they can refer to and have something in their hands where they can just read, or go through the pages and, kind of filter out what they want to learn, and then have somebody come back and teach them either what they learned or ask them questions about the modalities of what is in that book. Like, What do you think about going off with a stranger? What do you think about this stealing? What would you do, if you were in this situation? Or what does a person deserve that stole this? So just asking them questions so that they can answer basically the lessons that are in this book. And the lessons are in bold print. It'll, because I had a reading disorder and comprehension issues throughout my life, I wanted this book to be created for children with disabilities. Little did I know it was going to circle off and go into like police departments and family advocacy groups, which I'm totally proud of. And there's lessons in there that are in bold that will show the children like, okay, this is what you needed to learn. So if you got through the end of the page and you didn't get this lesson, maybe go read it again and then look at like what we're supposed to learn, or just look at the lesson that we're supposed to understand from this page. And if you didn't get it, reread it, or go to the next page and look at the picture. The reason the picture's on the other side is so that they can get kind of an idea or a picture on their own, and then flip the page over to see if that's what they were looking at or that's what they were understanding, so that they don't get too far ahead into the book and not understand what they're reading.
Do you think kids, do you think they can understand? I mean, it's, for one thing, I didn't know this till I was poking around before their show. Do you know how many kids go missing in the United States every year?
Probably at least over 500,000.
Well, not quite that much, but it's 60,000. 60,000.
I would think it's probably even more. They just don't have like the studies on them, or they, because sometimes they'll go missing and then they don't update their bureaus. 60,000 sounds actually really small. Maybe because I'm thinking about trafficking. Like I also like work with people who've been human trafficked and sex trafficked. So I think I probably included the percentage in there, because there's a lot of people that come from other countries come into here and then end up missing.
It's weird because it's like it's like you think about that for a second. You go like, okay, 60,000 people, kids go missing. You would think that with enough, we have over 350 million people in this country, and if he's like stole a kid, it's like, how do you get away with that? Because there's so many eyes out there. How would you? Why would you even want to do something so stupid? One, obviously, it's a sign of a sick mind. But to me, it's like, why would you risk yourself, your freedom, and your life by doing such a thing? And and the thinking about the 60,000, that go missing, and you wonder, how did they get to the point where they could go? Like, they didn't think about like I don't know about you, but if someone put me in the back of the truck and I had a chance to jump out of it, I'm taking that chance. I'm not gonna let you take me where you want to go. I'm going to do whatever.
Some of them are drugged though, so they don't have a choice, or they're tied up and they don't have a choice, especially with like the human trafficking and sex trafficking. They get them to a place where they're also so ashamed of themselves that they don't know what out looks like, or they've been so brainwashed at that point in time that they don't know what to do, and they don't know what safety is, because even when they've reached that safety zone, they don't realize that they're safe at all. I've been talking recently, there's about 5 or 6 different women that I've been speaking to in the last couple months. And it sounds like to me that even when they get to the safety spot, or even when they get out of the whole ring, it's almost like their mind is so adapted and so controlled that it takes a long time to like get out of that control, or to get out of that mindset.
Stockholm syndrome, right? With yeah. That when we saw that, we think people, we didn't know, as far as the regular American, they really didn't understand what that really was until Patty Hearst was kidnapped.
Right.
And then she ended up joining the Weather Underground, and then she ended up robbing banks. And it's like, I thought, wait a minute, I thought she was kidnapped. She was, but her kidnappers got her to sympathize with them, and come on their side, and the next thing you know, we saw what happened.
Right.
But that's oh, it's just
And I
I
would like, it's funny, not funny, but it's interesting to me that when I was talking to the legislator of Oregon, I was saying, you do know that Bend, Oregon is like one of the highest for human trafficking and sex trafficking, right? Like, I think there's something that we should do about that to make the numbers go down, And so she was looking at her age, goes, did you know that? Hey, the lady's like, nah, I didn't know that. And she goes, well, I'm going to have to talk to the police department to find out if that's true or not. I said, I implore you to do that. I actually suggest that you do that, just so that you know that not only am I not lying about it, but what I said is probably an understretch, because there's so many people that do go missing, that have been exploited, that it's hard to keep track sometimes. That is what I've been told.
I think that probably the two best places, and you would think again, you think that there's just no way you could hide, people like that, kidnap people, like kidnapping's a big crime. It's like, you start looking for someone instantly, like so and so got kidnapped. Okay, well, you see that, you see people go out there and they start massive searches. I mean,
Right.
and you think, most of the time they're caught. Well, sometimes they're not though, but I always think of like either hide in plain sight in a big city, like there's so many people, no one's going to notice if you kidnap somebody or have a kidnapped person with you. No one's going to know. Or Bend, Oregon, which has a lot of wild land on there, in the country. I mean, you could, in theory, you could disappear in the mountains of Oregon and Washington and not be seen again until you
Right.
wanted to.
Well, and there's so many avenues and so many ways so it's the highway that they're actually talking about, because there's such the road basically that leads into Oregon and California, Washington, but also heads out towards Arizona and Mexico, that it's a quick, easy lane, a quick, easy travel to get from one state to the next into Mexico or into these countries really quickly, that you would think that, there's more like legislation, or there's something, but there's just not. I mean, and people want to say, well, why didn't they find them right away? Well, those people that kidnapped them, obviously, there's so many like missing and exploited children, as well as people actually, that a lot of the times they're not found, as much as we want to say that they're found. I think that's more the news, or the media, that's bringing that about to make people have that illusion. And unfortunately, we're disillusioned because there's so many people that are just not found.
No, no, there isn't. Or they're even found like years later. I mean, like we just found so and so. It's been 20 years, and sometimes,
Right.
sometimes they leave on their own. I mean, sometimes like they'll contact that person and say, okay, we know you've been missing for 20 years. Your parents, your family's still looking for you, and they'll sit there and say, I don't want anybody to know where I'm at. I'm perfectly fine. I'm perfectly healthy. I'm here of my own free will. I just don't want to. And so
Or they see
yeah,
themselves on television and they're like, wait, is that me? Like,
yeah.
I'm not missing, or they're trying to find their parents again, like.
How do it's funny. They actually took away one tool that I think is still could be very effective. I think they got rid of it because of social media. But and a lot of people might laugh at this, but I always thought the face on the milk carton was a very effective tool, because not
Right.
everybody's on social media. Not everybody, and when you go on social media, I guarantee you at least 95% of the people going on social media, if you ask them what 10 sites are you going to be you're looking at, probably less than 5%, probably less than 1% are going, I'm going to go to the FBI page and see who's coming
Right.
up. No one does that. But
No.
if you go to the grocery store and you buy a gallon of milk, well, you're buying that pitcher because you're taking it's on the carton. It's like, it's not, no, I wasn't planning on that, but guess what? There it is.
Right.
You can't escape that. But I think some tools like that have gotten away. We've gotten away from that. Um, Now, are you are you a trained counselor for this? I mean, if
So
you're
I'm
looking
actually
into for,
a registered nurse with my bachelor's degree in nursing. I've been asked to take some of these courses that are like profiling courses and stuff like that so that I can help people that have had, unfortunate events. But I do not have a master's degree in counseling, and that's what you need between a master's and a doctorate, which would take me another 4 years of schooling. And I feel like I've been doing
yeah,
this for a while. I don't feel like I need a piece of paper that says, hey, do this, when
yeah,
I don't
100% agree.
work under the word counseling, and I don't offer that, but I do offer, like, you want to talk to me? And most of the time they're like, yeah, give me the one who's had this kind of experience, because a lot of people that don't have that experience, they get caught up in the words of like trying to make them feel better. And it's like, no, they don't want to feel better. They want to feel heard, and they want to feel understood. And when you get to that point of feeling heard and understood, their guards will come down, and they'll be able to open up more and talk to me about some certain things. And when things get out of my like scope of practice per se, I send them to somebody who can do what I'm asking, like EMDR therapy. I send somebody to the specialist. If they want to do psilocybin and different types of therapies that have been notoriously researched that help, I send them to, different avenues that will help them. But I don't per se do counseling. I will listen and I will hear what they have to say, and then I kind of guide them in different directions. But I don't like the word counseling, because then people are like, well, you're out of your scope of practice. I'm a nurse. I've been a nurse. I've been in the medical field now for 31 years, which is a pretty long time. I started as a combat field medic in the military. In 1995, I graduated. And once I graduated, I actually signed up because I wanted to go to war, because that would be the best training that you could get as a trauma personnel. And I thought I wanted to be a doctor. I didn't know about PA school. I wish I would have known about PA school then, but I knew about nursing. And so I wanted to go where the trauma was. And I was like, well, the best training I can get would be war, So young mind, I was 18 at the time, I was like, hey,
I
here.
honestly, I can tell you right now, you didn't need to leave this country for that. You could stay right here and got your training.
Right.
In fact, our hospitals, two hospitals in Detroit, that's where they send their trauma doctors to, the MASH
Right, and I
doctors.
actually worked at a
It's
level 1 trauma center in
mm,
Denver. It was Denver Health, actually, level 1 trauma center, and I got to see enough with that, and then at Cooper Trauma in Camden, New Jersey, I definitely saw enough of what I needed to see. It's almost like, you're talking about like Compton, LA,
yeah,
Denver, Colorado, Camden, New Jersey. So, I mean, I've kind of been in those big cities, but at the time, I wanted to learn as much as I could. And then when I got out, unfortunately, I had a parasite when I went to Bosnia. And so when I got out, I was still having really bad issues with pancreatitis that would follow me for 8 straight years. So I've had my pancreas, gallbladder, duodenum, and appendix taken out between
wow.
all of those. And so it made me become an automatic diabetic. Once they take your pancreas out, you're an automatic diabetic. And so
Mm,
I feel like it's kind of hindered certain things that I could do. And then it's also strengthened the things that I wanted to do. It made me calm down, and it helped me to the point where it was like, oh, now I have to watch my diet no matter what. It's like I can eat that stuff, but then there's repercussions of it. So it's definitely a balance. And then people ask, well, why did you write this book? I wrote the book because my grandmother asked me to write it when I was 20. She asked me to write it. And I was like, yeah, I'll write a book. And then fast forward 20 years later, I found out she was getting the first stages and early stages of dementia. Well, before she died, I wanted her to know what happened to me with the childhood stuff. And so I wrote this book, and she was able to read it on her birthday. And then she passed away, I think about 6 months. I want to say 6 months or 8 months after. So when she told me she was proud of me and that she read the book, that was kind of my, like, all right, I've done everything I pretty much wanted to do up until now. I've traveled the world. I've lived in Germany. I lived in, different countries for spats of time. I've lived all over the United States. There's a couple things that I still want to do in my lifetime. However, I'm pretty satisfied with how far I've come, given the background that I have and given the circumstances that I was in, and doing the things that I want to do and still helping people, I think has been really humbling, but it's also been really insightful and inspiring to people.
I've always been curious about, like I know that I know I guess it all depends on definition. To me, it's like I know a lot of soldiers will come back and they'll sit there and they'll say they have PTSD, and you sit there and say, well, what combat unit were you with, or what hospital were you with, and a lot of times they'll sit there and say, well, I was a truck loader, it's logistics, or I was KP, and I was like, I really don't understand, it's like, unless you're a doctor or a combat troop, I didn't understand where they got the PTSD at. Could you explain what PTS it means to you, and how do soldiers how do they get it? How do
So
you get
post-traumatic
PTS?
stress disorder is basically anything that's trauma related to you. I mean, some people can get PTSD not from war. They can get PTSD from a car crash because they got into a really bad car crash and now they're afraid to drive again. When you're talking about the military, there's different aspects of PTSD. So I'll go from like the very smallest range to like the holy shit range. Smallest range is like they go into the military and they've had kind of a cush life. Their mom and dads have helped them their whole life. They've not really had that many traumatic events. They go, they do basic training. They do something called AIT, which is advanced individual training. And then they go to their first unit and something happens to them. Maybe they get beat up, or they get, a gang comes and beats them up or something like that. And they get PTSD from the trauma and the traumatic event, all the way to like switch forward to the person that's getting shot at.
Right.
There's going to be PTSD because there's certain sounds that or smells that come along with that. Maybe they saw dead bodies. Maybe they didn't. Maybe they saw their friend shot. Maybe they didn't. In my dad's case, he watched his best friend get blown up by an IED right in front of him. So when I learned different facts that came out of Vietnam and the other wars that both my uncles and my grandfather and all these other people had gone through, I realized that I needed to kind of work on my judgment because the judgment was strong and I was angry. I was angry at certain situations, not understanding why my dad couldn't be there for me. The reason he couldn't be there for me is he didn't even want to be there for himself. He turned into an addict, a drug addict, and alcoholic because he didn't want to face anything that he had seen or done in his past. And that is fair. I don't know if I would want to confront.
My dad saw
and
that.
So when you get PTSD, your whole body chemistry, they've done studies on this, your brain actually changes. So sometimes they'll do something called neurocognitive feedback. And what that is, they'll put like leads on your head that go into like the computer, and then the computer sends waves of sound, music sounds through your brain to help retransmit those and create new neural pathways. And what that means is once you have those new neural pathways, it doesn't go back. It doesn't go back to what like at the state of mind that you were at before. It kind of goes forward. So the good thing about that is it doesn't go backwards. The bad thing is you want to be done with it, quickly, and it doesn't. It's not over quick. It's something that takes sometimes months, sometimes takes years. And so with post-traumatic stress disorder, it also lives in our body, meaning say you go to a store and you were assaulted by a larger man say a woman or even a man was assaulted by a larger man and he smells of, a certain cologne or certain aftershave, the times that your brain smells that aftershave or even looks at that person and identifies the danger, their body can actually almost re-traumatize itself through that, because they sometimes they don't understand like what's going on, like why is this guy causing me so much stress, or why can't I go into this certain store, because trauma lives in our cells. So those smells come back, the people come back. And then also with post-traumatic stress disorder, if you are a child dealing with the traumatic issues such that I was dealing with, I'm an incest survivor, and I was, gang raped at 10, and then I was raped again at 22 by my brother's friends. So with those kinds of things, my best friend was forced to watch, and she brought it up at my stepdad's funeral. So it was kind of one of those things where it was like, why did you tell me these things, But now it makes sense as to why I was so panicked when I'd see a white van getting too close to my car, or if I saw a white van in the back of my rear view mirror, why I would get so anxious and so like, what is going on? I didn't really put those pieces together. And then when she told me certain things that had happened, that my brain, I thought I had forgotten because I shoved those things down. That's where PTSD comes from. So sometimes with childhood issues, if you're shoving it down and shoving it away and acting like there's no problems with it, sometimes it can rear its head in different directions in different ways. I'd opened Pandora's box with counseling thinking, this is what I wanted to do, like open up Pandora's box. The problem is my therapist didn't know how to close the Pandora's box, so I had to continue doing therapy until I got to a point where I'm okay with myself. I'm okay with being home alone. I'm okay with it being dark in my house now. I'm okay with having certain lights on. It just, like I said, post-traumatic stress disorder is basically through a traumatic event, that person gets anxious or depressed or lashes out, gets angry. When children are sexually assaulted, they revert to like bedwetting. They start tantrums. They do all sorts. They itch in certain areas, or they're basically talking about sexual innuendos at age 5, and you're like, whoa, what is going on here? Like, you should know about the bathtub in this manner. You shouldn't know about massaging certain areas at 5 years old. But I've encountered kids where I'm like, let's talk about that, and then I have an obligation to report. I'm a mandated reporter. So if I see certain bruises on a child or certain things that I think need a mandated reporter, I'm, by law, I have to say, hey, I think this kid's getting abused, or, can you look into the neglect that's happening with this adult, so going back to what you were asking, any traumatic event that happened to anybody at any time can create something called PTSD. And what that means is, since your cells feel the same way, there's a book called The Body That Keeps Score. And what that meant when the person wrote it is, our cells change, our neurobiology changes. There's certain things that happen with our neurosystem that gets rewired through trauma. And until those things can basically be rewired again into something that's positive, you're going to have the same effect with somebody getting angry, or somebody having shutdowns or meltdowns, or failing in school, or, certain things that happened, until they can reprocess that information.
I just thinking, we use the term, and sometimes I wonder, because we attribute it to combat, it's the soldiers, go overseas and whatnot. And, and you like to think that, I guess it's sort of like a combination. It's like, I don't know, it's like, I know my dad started in Korea, and, I was way before anything was known about what PTS was. And, but the only thing you could always tell a soldier that pretty much that had seen combat it was sort of like because they never talked about it.
Right.
You get a
You
lot of
get some
you get
people
a
that are
lot of
talking about their numbers and stuff like that, or they're too excited to talk about their where they've been in the zones. It's like,
yeah,
okay, like, hey, how about we
yeah,
side note that? And, because the people I hang out with, they don't want to talk. We don't want to talk
no,
about the past, and we don't want to relive it because that ends up giving people more anxiety later on. They've proven already that talk therapy doesn't work because it stresses you out. So the people that are like wanting to glorify their
oh yeah,
accolades, it just doesn't make sense to me at all.
no.
And there are some people, great for them, but I personally, I will touch base on like what happened as far as like how I got pancreatitis. Well, I'll tell you, I was in Bosnia. I'm not going to tell you the things that I went through and I saw. Like, no thanks. I don't want to relive any of that. I just want to like live on with my life. And I'll tell you, I'm a nurse now. And people are like, yeah, but you skipped over a topic. I'm like, I skipped it because I don't really want to deal with it. I don't want to go back. I'm trying to go forward here. If there are certain things where I'll go back to and refer to. And that's why I wrote my book. Because people are like,
Look at Chris
write
Kyle.
it.
Look at Chris. I look at Chris Kyle, and I mean, it's sort of really talk about a dark comedy, you know. But you look at someone like Chris Kyle, who, he's how many? I think he served like 5 rotations through, and
Yeah.
and you're sitting there watching it, and you're going like, man, why didn't someone actually put the brakes on this? So many people failed that man, and then he went out to try to help somebody out, and then he died in the most American way. I could
Well,
not
I
think
can
of
tell you
a
from a friend's perspective, he did the thing that civilians that are not in the military won't understand is when, like, a friend of mine's been to 4 wars, another friend of mine's been to 5 different wars. And then somebody I was dating way back in the day went to 5 different wars and really wanted to put himself back into it because there's an adrenaline rush that happens when you're in war, or that happens when your brain and everything is excited, meaning that your body's ready and almost trained, that when you come back from those events, the world gets a little boring. And so they end up creating chaos just to make that adrenaline start rushing. They'll start jumping out of planes. They're wanting to race cars. They're, doing these things to excite their nervous system. And so, like, a friend of mine told me, he's like, I want to go
why
back.
is it,
Like,
why
I
is
don't
it, why
feel
is it,
comfortable here
why isn't being alive enough?
because you don't get enough of the reaction or action to your body. And when a fighter is done fighting because they're either taken out or their age starts to catch up to them, they're not done with that fighting. Every time they look at somebody else fighting, they're wanting to go fight, but their days are done. Like, a friend of mine's in his 50s now. It's like, all right, dude, there's only so many times your brain can get knocked out or knocked
Right.
in before you get CTE, which is another thing that people don't understand. And that means that fighters and wrestlers, when they get hit too many times, their brain can concuss little by little. And then all of that can create neuro damage, basically brain damage. And
Yeah,
so,
that's what I think happened to it's weird because you think about it, there was a pro wrestler named Chris Benoit,
mhm.
and he wiped himself, killed himself and his family, and people are like, how that happened, well, why did that happen? And it's like he did a move where and he was praised for it. It was like he was the only one that did it. It was called a closer. And that literally, because when you watch it, you're going like, oh, there's no way he's doing this full time, because but there he is. There's this guy. He's leading, jumping off the top rope. He's leading with his head, and he's hitting another human being with that. His head's getting popped
Same
every
thing
single
with
time.
football, the damages
Yeah,
that they're creating. And that's why they're starting to really learn about this stuff, which is
yeah,
great
NFL.
because, like I said, there are soldiers that are struggling with this because they leave their special ops, or, the Rangers, or special forces, or Delta Force, or any of the ones that are like elite that come back. They want to go back to war because family life just doesn't cut it for them anymore. Their adrenaline's not rushing as much, and they don't know how to deal with life. There are people that come out of jail and they end up wanting to go right back into jail because the
Yeah.
system outside of the jail system, they don't know how to like work a 9 to 5 job anymore. They know that there's 3 meals a day and they can count on it. They know it. Just like when somebody's gone through domestic violence, people are like, why the heck would you want to date somebody else that's got the same traits? It's kind of wired in that brain of ours to basically go, oh, you're treating me like this. Well, this I can expect. To where, even for me, I was very guilty of this for a while until I had enough therapy to understand that's kind of not what I want anymore. But you know what to expect off the abusive person versus somebody being so polite and so nice to you. It's scary when you're not used to that. So I can understand the fear that comes with it, because a lot of the soldiers, a lot of people that are pretty, from prison, and a lot of people that have gone through trauma or traumatic events in their lifehood, they see a way in instead of a way out. So when I say they see a way in, if you know the expectancy of something that's going to happen, like if I know that I'm going to get hit, I'm going to brace and know that this is the consequences of speaking this way to this person. These are the consequences of being around these types of people. Not that it is right. It is not. Really, there's no right or wrong in anything, really. But
it always perplexes me. It always perplexes me too when even as little as even as young as high school, when you saw the girls all go around the mean, the bad boy. It's like there's you see a girl who a really nice guy was was asking her out, to go to the movie or bowling or whatever, and very nice person, good grades, good head on the shoulder, was kind to other people, and then the girl would see that and go like, yeah, that's not man enough for me. I'm going to go with the guy on the biker, the guy with the cigarettes rolled up in his sleeve, the greaser type. And
right.
it always perplexes you to sit there and say, why the hell would you put yourself in that position? And then the other thing too is like when it does go wrong, and it will go wrong, and then they come back and they want to know why. And honest to heaven, I have known some women who've done that, not once but twice.
Well, I mean, I don't know what their childhood represented too, because that could be like,
good homes.
You never know what somebody's what's going on behind closed doors. I basically had people telling me that never would they have guessed, because I put on a smile. I put on everything was fine. Everything was okay. It just wasn't, and you get ingrained to know that once you're out of those closed doors, we had a vow of silence. So
how many men did you date that had those same tendencies? Was it just the one and you
no,
said screw that?
I went over and over and over again until I got
why does that happen?
Well, that's what I'm trying to tell you. It's the expectancy that that you become comfortable with. If you become comfortable with a certain person or they've also done studies about when you're in this childhood and you have certain things that happen. Say your dad leaves and you never have a dad. You're almost trying to recreate those things to close chapters of your books. So I dated, unfortunately, multiple guys that were narcissistic, rude, mean, and had terrible tendencies. Never once did it hit me that I deserved better until I really started shedding the layers of therapy that I needed, because my brother did certain things and then certain things happened. So whether it's a mom, like a friend of mine's mom abused him. So he ended up being with women that, for me, I could always see it. It was like, dude, why would you want this trashy woman? Same thing from our perspectives. But he was closing out the chapters from his mom. So people innately will almost recreate a dating lifestyle with either their mom's or their dad's energy. so that they can close those chapters. And once those chapters are closed, they'll either move on, cheat, or they'll move through it and the relationship's okay. There's just so many different paths that people, that's why I really work on my judgment, because at any point somebody can snub their nose and say, oh, how could you do this? Oh, how did you do that? Why did you live in this circumstance? Well, put that hat on and put those shoes on and see what you would have done, because it's really easy to play Monday Night Football quarterback after the events happen. In 2020, great for those people who have judged me harshly, saying, why would you do this? Why would you do that? I did what I thought was right at the time. And for them, I beg to differ that in their minds, they thought it was right for what they're going through. So, I don't tend to judge what people are doing or what relationships they're in anymore, because I understand the psychology of it now. But it took me a long time to get there. It's been since 2013 with my last relationship where I was like, no more do I want this. Until I can get therapy that will help me break all of these blocks that I've got so that I can see what I need to see and be who I want to be. I don't want any relationship. And I still have that right now. Like, I will not date until I, find a friend first that is willing to help me understand and feel safe. If you don't make me feel safe, you're out, and that's just bottom line. I have really good friends at this point in my life. Not that I don't need more. I, of course, would always invite more people in my life. However, I'm very cautious in letting people in my lifehood or even in my space, because once I allow somebody in my space, that means that they're occupying time. And that's the one thing that you can't get back is time. You can get back anything else, and so the abuse that people go through, and then they recreate the abusive relationships. The only reason I understand it is psychology.
Yeah, I mean, my mom and her second husband was no picnic. That's for sure. I totally can get that. I'm sitting there and it's like, I know there's a lot of reasons. It just seems to me that the more you learn about a condition, like, when my mom and her husband, there wasn't the information today as there was back then.
Right.
And to me, when I see it happening today, I'm just confused by it, because it's like, look, I understand it better in the 80s when they weren't a whole. I mean, you think there's no resources today compared to what it used to be? Oh my Lord, you have places to go, people to talk to. Back then, you didn't have shit. You didn't
Correct.
have anybody to talk to. Maybe the pastor might give you 10 minutes, but that's it. But today we know the psychology better, much better. We know the warning signs much better. We know what to look for much better. We also know too, like when the wife goes missing for 2 days, we also know too to go walk to the husband, because he's pretty much always going to be behind it. We know that here today. Back then, not so much. But today, it seems like that we have so much information, but are we making the best of it for people? Is it being shaped, and is it being used wisely and effectively to help people?
There's a lot of information, but if somebody doesn't have access to it, or somebody doesn't understand how to access it, again, I can't judge what a person goes through and what they're dealing with, because many times if people are poor, they don't have access to cables, that television. Aren't watching the television shows that everybody's watching. They don't have access to a computer. They don't have access to the knowledge that we have now. And so, there's women that I speak to now that didn't have the access to that stuff. They're poor, or they were confined, or they were sold basically to a group of people that were in a cult. So, they just didn't have access to it. So, not everybody has the access like what I had access to right now, or you have access to. So it might seem easy to judge that person and be like, well,
Not
why
so
don't
much.
you do this?
I wouldn't say judging. I'm just sitting there saying, but there's just more. There's more out there now. I mean, before there wasn't anything, so you can understand that. Like, man, I mean, damn, like when
There's a
people
lot of
say,
times where you'll go to a police officer and they can't do anything though. And those are the people I'm dealing with right now. They're saying that they were violated. They're saying all these other things. They go to the police and there's nothing that they can do. They want a restraining order. They want this, they want that, and that can't be done. So, I mean, again,
yeah,
yes, we could say it till we're blue in the face. However,
yeah,
the reality is until men step up to the plate and say that this is not okay to beat women,
yeah.
or women step up to the plate and say, don't do this to men, we're going to have conflicts, and that's been since the day we were all born, and I wish that it was different, but working and being able to help people get to therapy and get what they need has definitely opened my eyes. And looking at like Chase Hughes' neurocognitive program, I mean, it has definitely opened my eyes to a lot of things that I wasn't privy to until I started learning about it. And I was like, wow. And then working with the women, I asked certain questions, and especially the ones that are in danger right now, we've asked, in their current state of mind and in their state, to go get restraining orders, to go get police help, do all these things. Then they turn around and tell me they wouldn't help me. They sent me away. They told me I had to, this. So no matter the education, there's still things that we need to improve upon in America.
Do you think we're in a gender war now?
I unfortunately think since COVID happened, we're in a people war right now. I don't know if it's male or female. I stick up for people. I'm known as the people's advocate. So when people ask me, is it one gender or the other, I'm actually right in the middle, and I part the waters and I go, everybody has their thing, right? I don't ever want to pin women against men, younger against older, countries against other countries, because it doesn't make sense to me. But since COVID happened, everything's been turned upside down. And if you look at the media, you're kind of getting bought, because Fox News is bought and they have a certain agenda. CNN is bought and they have a certain agenda. Everything out in the media has a certain agenda, and they won't let certain things out, so I don't ever think that it's always, or I don't even think a reflection is man against woman. I won't say that. There's a lot of people who do want to pet men up, or pin them up as the problem. It takes two to tango. I think there's a people problem, and that's why I'm going to keep saying it, because I see a lot of men that are really great in society, and I see a lot of crappy women in society. I see a lot of crappy men in society. So
I was going to say that I have never, with some of the videos that come out, and you see the way women act, and you look at them and you go like, man, I never saw that growing up. I never saw a woman act like that. Never. They're in the 80s, early 90s. But now, oh Lord, it's absolutely crazy.
And they have this new rage bait, and like people are trying to get known on social media, so they do these stupid things to try to get attention, not realizing it's not the attention that they really want.
No.
And then it's too late. It's like, well,
yeah. Our friend Trenchy mentioned about women staying. It says plus feelings can get in the way of logic. That's absolutely true. That was true back then and true today. He also says also depends on how much of the person has their hooks in, and sometimes it can be extremely dangerous to leave, and they don't have the resources to leave. Yeah,
very true.
Even today. Even today.
I don't see any of the questions. So if anybody has a question, you'll have to read them to me, because I just see a white screen.
Well, this is like okay. So this is like one of the most unusual shows we've ever done, because but we're in it, and we're talking about it, and I'm okay with that if you are. Um, I think this is fascinating. Um, so tell us about writing the Resilient Warrior. Well, since we're going to stay here, so let's talk about that, about your process for that.
So my
Um,
book's called Resilient Warrior. There's other titles that have the word the or a now. My first book was called A Resilient Warrior. And when I got rid of the Amazon Prime, they took my books away. So I had to go to a different company with my publisher. Now it's just called Resilient Warrior. And it looks like this. It's available on Amazon, barnesandnoble.com, and amazon.com. And it's literally my lifehood from the age of 3 years old to about 2019, before COVID hit in 2020. The first book came out March of 2020, was when I was starting to do speaking events. And then once March 16 or March 18 hit, COVID hit. But the reason I wrote it was to everybody that I'd spoken to that has met me has literally said, you have a story, or you should write a book. Almost everybody, not like everybody, actually. I shouldn't say everybody, but there was a lot, like 85% of the people that had met me that wanted to know my story or get to know me as a human being has been literally like, holy crap, I've never heard of somebody that has been through this much. So, you should write a book and talk about it. And at this point, I think not only do I want to talk about it and get it out there, I want to create a movie so that way people can be inspired at the end, because I lived. I've had 4 organs taken out. I've been in 3 comas. I used to have seizures that I don't. I was on ketamine every other day, literally up until the point that I had stem cells put in my spinal cord, which helped. I was bedbound for 3 years and 8 months, which is a very long time to be bedbound. Before all this stuff happened to me, I broke my foot basically, and my tib fib, all that kind of shattered. And I went to the VA hospital and was basically tortured for 4 straight months at San Antonio, Texas hospital. So yes, it happened in America. And the repercussions of that, I'm still dealing with medical issues because of those events that happened. And so once I basically came out in 2014 and started going public about everything that happened, I had, who are my friends now, people that had played in this show called The Vikings with Michael Hurst as the writer. And they're coming out with Blood Axe soon. But my friends encouraged me to also write, because they were like, you're so strong. Like, we need more people to write about this kind of stuff so that people can see how to get through it. So I wrote basically the things that had happened to me and what I did to get healing through it, and I'm mostly proud of being able to even talk about the subjects that I can without getting all worked up about it. Because at this point, like I said, I've done a lot of therapy up until this point to get to where I'm at now. And the resiliency is basically from happening from childhood, all the things that had happened and those types of abuse, coming up to being an adult and having some of the similar traumas that had happened, not on my own fault, but basically my brother. And then having other things happen with the VA and the military. So things had just compiled. In the military, for me, I didn't have like that many traumatic events happen in the military. It was out of the military that I had most of my trauma that had happened.
Right. I'll go back to the chat real quick. Trincy's been firing up the storm here. It says, let's see, is Mindy related to Michael Daugherty? I don't know. Do you have a brother named Michael?
No. A lot of people that are in the acting industry, there's 2 Daughertys that they ask me about. And no, I'm not related to anybody that has my last name that's in the acting industry.
Trenchy says, it took me a long time to leave my abusive father figure, and I went back there. I went back to them a couple of times and turned down leaving them a few times because of a lot of complicated reasons.
Yeah.
Says, I know it's not exactly the same thing, but I thought it was relevant to the conversation. I think
No,
it's
it's very
relevant.
true because I did the same thing. When I got out of the military, I wanted to seek my dad and I wanted to know who he was because he didn't really want me. And so I wanted to see, like, oh, maybe if I'm an adult and I'm close to him with like living proximity, maybe he'll want me again. Turns out he didn't. He was very abusive as well. So, nope.
It says, what's the name of the book again? Resilient Warrior.
Resilient Warrior. It looks just like this. And it's on Amazon.com is the best way to get it. And then my children's book is A Dragon's Voice for ages 12 and under. And you can also get this on Amazon. Most people go through Amazon, but you can get it online. Google Amazon.com and then put my name in there. And Resilient Warrior looks like this. It has my face on there, so it's easier to find. And I appreciate anybody that buys my book. Please write a review because that's how we're getting it in more police departments. If you know anybody who has a police department close to them or wants to speak to me, please have them reach out to me on any of my platforms, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. It's all the same. The only difference on Instagram is it'll say Water Gypsy without the vowels. It'll WTR GPSY. So, but otherwise, my name, Mindy Daugherty, is kind of splashed everywhere on all of my social media outlets.
Let's see, Trent. Let's see. She can sell her movie rights. I just hope she gets it. She gets the right director and production company to get her story told. Yeah, well, I think that's something where she. I think just don't sell it to Michael Bay. Shit. Let's not do that. Let's see. Pat, your room is haunted, man, or is that Paladin? Let's see. Shutting off the lights. It probably is. Probably Paladin. He's.
No,
He
because
is a
it's
cheetah.
blinking in the background. I thought it was just me. I thought I was going like it goes like in phases where I'm like, I'm tripping or something. And then I'm like, oh, okay, good. I'm glad somebody else mentioned that because I was like,
Yeah, it's part of the cheetah. He does run fast enough to bend light, so that's probably what's going on right here. Um, so yeah, okay. So we were talking about. I was just looking at what Trenchy said, and yeah, it's. I guess dealing with trauma is it's. I guess there's no universal. There's no universal. End all to know all. To doing that. I mean, everybody has to deal with it. On their own way, in their own manner. Like with you, you took it to therapist and therapy. For me, I actually tell you the truth is what we're doing today is a byproduct of my therapy.
Sure.
This came out of my trauma to do this show and to talk to people. So I mean, whatever. I guess the point is like you got to make a step forward. You might not make it. I mean, sometimes not everybody is healed. I guess that's one thing I always tell people. A lot of people say, well, you could you'll get better, you'll not all the time. Not
Correct.
sometimes there's just nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do. Someone's going to go the way they're going to go, and there's nothing you can do. The only thing you can ask is that if that happens, do it by yourself. Don't take innocent people with you. A lot of people, they want to drive their cars crazy, or go back to the most American way to deal with things. Don't
And I
do that.
implore people like just check out my sites, and that way, if you have any other like further questions when we're done with this, feel free to message me. I am the one who responds. A lot of people ask me, "Do you have somebody answering your questions?" I'm like, I answer all of my questions. I answer all the feedback that comes to me. I am very reachable. I make myself reachable to many people across the world. And if I don't answer right away, I'll answer it when I can.
Wow, thank you guys all for your thanks you all for your comments and questions. Keep them coming. We're gonna be talking about this one all the way through. I'm gonna have to reschedule her. I can do this. I can reschedule you in May. You're gonna come back in May, and we're gonna do the right. We're gonna do the acting
The
interview.
8 questions.
Yeah, we're gonna do that one, I promise. Because otherwise, Will Colazzo will probably be going like, "Dude, I gave you my actress to talk to, and next thing you know, now you're talking." It turned into a Dr. Phil, and it's like, no, it turned out to be way better than that. Let's see. So Phil, John is here from Doomsday Crypt, and he says hello to you as well.
Hi.
Yep, and yes, my cat is a speedster. Hey, Rocky, how are you, sir? And he has been enjoying the discussion as well. This was not planned in any stretch of the imagination. But it just walked into it, and we're going to carry it to the conclusion. So, what are some of the things that about you that you discovered that were during your journey? What are some of the things you discovered about yourself that you didn't know? That were positive that helped you get over the at least I don't know. I can say over the hump because it sounds like you have quite a mountain, but let's just say helped you cope better.
Sure. So when I was bedbound for that long, the doctors were saying, I don't know if you're going to be able to walk again. I don't know if you're going to. And in my mind, there was no way that I wasn't going to walk. I mean, there were many times that I fell literally on my face and I would get back up. And at one point, I was literally scaling walls, which literally meant my hands were against the walls so that I could feel myself going up. And if I felt like I was going to fall, at least I had the wall to kind of go against. And when I drove my car, I was hopping on one leg and my left leg was up. Basically, my leg was all the way up to my eyes and past my eyes because I had something called chronic regional pain syndrome. So anytime my leg would lower to about here, it would start to swell and turn purple. So anytime it was down for longer than 18 seconds, because that's where we recorded it at the physical therapy office when I first got this, it turned like literally into the Kool-Aid man's foot. Like I was like, oh my gosh, this is purple. And that's basically a circulation issue. And so I think at that point in time, I had set in my mind that I wanted to get back to riding. I had been training for 100-mile ride with the American Diabetes Association. I had ridden 36 miles with one, 86 miles was the one that I got the furthest on, and then 65 miles. So I was literally riding with the American Diabetes in all these different places. Well, I went to a certain state thinking I was going to ride with them, and that didn't happen. So it's been mostly through my own tenacity that I figured if I was going to get through this, I needed to dig a little deeper, and I needed to figure out what it was that I needed in my own life to change the direction I was going into. Being in 3 comas, my first coma, to be honest with you, is very peaceful. And there were, unfortunately, in my lifetime, there's been a lot of the times where I would want to seek that silence and that peace, because I've never had that kind of a peace in my life until I went into the first coma. And to be honest with you, I saw a Native American tribe doing like a tribal dance and having like a fire. And so I was headed towards them. And then my mom said, basically, if you go, I will commit suicide. You need to come back to me now. And those were the last words that I heard that was like, brought me all the way back, and I was angry because I was ready.
I was gonna say I'd be pissed off too.
I was very, very angry for a long time, and I made myself a DNR for that reason. I do not resuscitate because I've been intubated, resuscitated more than once, and it is painful. You're breaking ribs when you're going into the chest compressions. You're getting, I had internal scars for a long time. I couldn't swallow for a long time. I had to relearn how to walk, talk, swallow. It just wasn't that fun. I wouldn't recommend it. But I will say that throughout all of these medical term, even the turmoil that I've had with the medical field, I don't hate the people that brought me to this space. I am not glad either, but I have just come to, I guess I've come to a peace with it. And my main goal at this point in time is to literally help as many people as I can change their lifehood or even change their perspectives about things. And if they've had traumatic events, my main goal is to help them get through it. You know, especially those who are struggling right now, who are either embarrassed. Like I have many men who've come to me very embarrassed because they were raped and assaulted. And so I dig into that as well. Matter of fact, one of my best friends who died a couple of years ago, he was too embarrassed to let me know that he was raped by 3 women in the military. And I was like, wow, that's why you were so angry with me when my story came out. And I couldn't figure out, like, why are you so mad at me? Like, dude, what's going on? And then he told me a story, and it was mostly because he was too ashamed and embarrassed to come out and say that he's like this big dude. And he's like, I can't tell people that. I'm like, sure you can. That's the first step, is acknowledging it happened, moving through it, you know, and I can help you move through it. The problem was he did so many drugs and became an alcoholic that he didn't want to look at his things. He wanted to bury it deep,
Oh my God.
never talk about it, and then he died.
Men have a really weird way. The thing that gets me angry, really, when I think about men, is that especially a lot of these so-called, you know, warriors, which are just full of shit. And to me, it's like, you know, you get a lot of these guys out here saying how, you know, like they'll talk about the child molesters and sit there and say, yeah, they all deserve to burn. Okay, so and these are the same guys. These are the same guys that when a high school teacher, a female high school teacher, is fucking some 15-year-old or 14-year-old, they're sitting there over there going like, yeah, oh yeah, I let her do that. You know, I let her do me. I wish my teacher looked like that. I wish I was that kid. So basically what you're saying
I don't
is,
agree with any pedophilia. None.
no,
0.
I don't either.
And I think
But
that
I
either
just hate,
you're a
I hate the
man or a
hypocrisy.
woman, I think you deserve the same consequences.
Yeah,
And
I
for me,
absolutely.
I either would rather them get shot or just be dead. And I will have no problems with saying that multiple times. I wish that it was legal to, especially when you're catching somebody in the act, I wish it was legal to just kill them on the spot. Not many people like me saying that. Not many
I feel
people are like,
I personally like the idea of castration myself.
Castration works to a point, but that's not enough for me.
I
I'm
think
very much Viking. Viking blood runs through my soul and my ancestors. So for me, when I saw the Blood Eagle, if you like, when you're done this show, look up Blood Eagle Vikings. That's what I want them to have, you know, and none of them are going to Valhalla. That's for sure. So anybody that hurts children or, you know, especially sexual crimes, any of that, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I don't get I just don't understand the hypocrisy. The hypocrisy is staggering. It's like, you know, like we didn't hear too much about women assaulting men. That's even now today, it's still a real, it's like it's headline news every time a female teacher assaults a boy.
It's rare, that's why. But it's not that rare. I wish people would understand. It's not that rare that women actually are accomplices, and people don't want to talk about that. It's like, if people only knew what was in their backyard, you know, and I'm all about opening it up, and I'm all about shoving that mirror right in there, like, hey, everybody, I'm open about what happens to me or what happened to me. And so I often use improv as an outlet as well, because a friend of mine got me in improv several years ago, and she's like, man, you're really angry. You may do really well in these classes because it helps you get through all of these emotions. And I was like, emotions? I don't want to get through all my emotions. I don't want to be happy right now. I was stuck in being angry. And then I went to the class and had a lot of fun. And she was right. It helped me tremendously going into like what's called taxi cab and having all these different emotions. But I think that the problem with our society is they still look at males as like, they all have to be macho men, and that ain't true. You know, we need more men that are sensitive. We need more men who are willing
they
to
get
step up
ripped
to
for
the
that.
plate.
I don't get that either, because if you're a nice guy, you get called a white knight or a simp, when all you're doing is just being decent. So the same people that walk up there and say, yeah, you sit there and you'll see some guy standing up for a woman or whatnot, and then men will just laugh or clown or make fun. And to me, I just want to sit there and say, what if that was your mother? What would you do? How would you feel about that? If I mean, if you saw me opening the door and I just let it go and slammed it in her and it slammed on her face, how would you feel about that? Or is that still a laughing matter to you? I mean, are you sitting there going to come buy me a beer because I didn't hold the door open for the
Depends
woman?
on how their
Or,
mom
or,
treated them when they were young, to be
or,
honest with you.
or
Some
yeah, or are
some
you?
would say,
Yeah,
yeah, just slam the door in her face. But for the most part, no. I think
yeah.
unfortunately our society praises that. And in the horror films, you kind of do see that all the time. You do see men aggressively with women. You tend to see, unfortunately still today, some of these movies that are made, they're not respectful to women. So, I mean,
No.
it's not going to change until a collective whole decides that they're going to change.
I agree with that. I mean, I don't like heavy exploitation films. And who would ever thought we still be talking about that this now? But I talked about a movie a couple of for like the last month. I talked about the director. I never say his name. I don't want to give him any power. But he exploits his cast. I mean, mercilessly. And the movies he makes are cat litter level. And the thing is, though, that the talent that he has for his movies, his talent outweighs everything else. They're so much better than the shit he puts them in. But there you go. You see a lot of because not very many men get asked to do a nude scene. Like if I was going to go and do one of this
Very
guy's
true.
one of his,
There's
if I
not
was going
many
to do
people
this,
doing like Game of
no.
Thrones here.
No, if that's what I really appreciate. I appreciated that from a producer named Bill Lawrence, who did Scrubs, and he said over and over and over, he says, for every time I had one of my actresses, and there's two, anytime I had them taking off their clothes, I made damn sure that the male was in the same position.
Good.
And he did. I
Puts it
mean,
on a
there's
level of like they get uncomfortable with, because there's not a lot of men who actually like doing that. They don't mind if women do that, but when they're subjected to the same thing, like, no, 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 I don't want to do that.
let's see. Let me go back to the chat real quick. What's this? They can still, yeah. They can still touch you. Put a sick dog down. Hell yeah. Dogs get treated worse than the criminal. Doesn't matter the gender. They're both bad. They absolutely are. Most males victims. If the ones that are well known, I can only think of the one with the Mary Lou Tornio one. I mean, his life got fucked. He struggled. He struggled. I still think he's still struggling. With his life. His life didn't turn out the way he thought it was going to be, because he was a victim. He was a victim of a violent act. See, men taught are let's see, men are taught to process their feelings correctly. They're shamed for
Shut
showing
it
their feelings
down.
because,
Yeah, very true.
yeah, because in the end of the day, even Rambo cried his feelings when bottled up, and at the end they exploded. They exploded. Absolutely right. That's why it's like that's why a lot of people love Rambo. They think that's the best movie that he did, was for that last scene where he just showed his emotions, and that was Sylvester Stallone being really real there. That wasn't
Right.
acting. And yeah, it's okay to show feelings. It's better to show feelings than to hold it in. If you
Yeah.
hold in your feelings, that is a recipe guaranteed
For
for
disaster.
destruction. Yeah,
Well,
it
destruction and
absolutely is.
disaster. I
Um,
find that's why I say again and again and again, I'm a people's advocate. I don't advocate for one or the other. And I think that's where I get respected the most, is because I'm not going to stand up for just one.
no, no. And I'm not gonna, I never, I really, the way I look at it, I give two rats ass what anybody thinks. If I walk if I walk wherever I walk in and I still hold the door. I still hold the fucking door because that's how I was raised. I was raised that way. We open the door for women. We say thank you. When someone helps us, we say thank you. We say, how can we help you if you need any help? If you can do that, if that's what, if it's needed. And maybe it sounds old fashioned because everybody seems to be out for themselves, like you mentioned earlier. Everybody's out for clout. I got to be famous. Everybody wants their 15 minutes of fame. And it's like,
Right.
why settle for 15 a flash when you can settle for a lifetime a lifetime of good by just doing the simple things, by treating people with respect, not fighting with anybody, not, be willing to talk to somebody, like, what can we do to help you? How can we de-escalate your trauma that you're going through, or if you're angry. You speaking of anger, I'm there. I'm angry all the time. I mean, that truly is my secret too. It's like I'm
I used to
angry.
use anger as my scapegoat, and now I realize that the only person the anger was hurting was me. And I got to a point where I was like, it is exhausting to be as angry as I was. And I was on a vengeance for a very long time. And I wanted to get back. Basically, I wanted revenge on the doctors that had did what they did to me in 2014. And then I got to a point
No,
where it was like, if I can forgive myself for getting myself, because we all have choices, right? So I can never blame anybody else for getting me into that choice of what I chose. So if
right.
I take full responsibility of everything that's ever happened to me in my life, and then if I can find a peace with that, and if I can literally forgive myself, because we don't forgive for other people. When you forgive somebody, you're doing it for yourself because you're forgiving that piece of you that either knew or didn't know. And sometimes I'd be walking into a grenade knowing it was a grenade, but I tempted it and I wanted it at the time that I thought that I wanted it. It wasn't healthy for me. It wasn't good for me. It's just something I
Wasn't
acknowledge
good for
now.
wasn't good for them either. The other side.
Right.
Even though they're being a capital A asshole, still you look at it and go like, man, that's just that's when like, it's like
I just
these
like
are
to be
not the.
honest with people and transparent. That was like sometimes I did know what I was getting into, and sometimes I knew that these people were in gangs and stuff like that, and I still dated them. It's like, what are you crazy? Sometimes I thought maybe I was, but I also tempted death because I wanted it. I wanted death more than anything else after the stuff that had happened to me. I almost basically tempted people like, oh, you think you're Billy Badass? Okay, let's get your weapon, do this, do that. And I would get them angry on purpose. Stupid of me, of course. I get that now. But at the time that I was dealing with so much rage, I didn't know what to do. Like, I genuinely thought that getting taken out of this world would be the best thing for me and everybody else. Turns out that didn't happen because they were, even the people that had their weapons are like, you're fucking crazy. I am not messing with you. No, you get somebody else to do that. And I was like, even you? Like, you get paid to do this. What's your problem? They didn't even want to. So, I mean, I had to come to a point, literally, at one point, realizing, like, okay, if I'm not going to get taken out and if I'm not dying, like the doctor said I was going to die, I better make something useful out of my life. And after I wrote the book, I realized maybe there's a lot more work I need to do on this earth. And that's why I haven't been taken out.
Yeah,
I joke with my mom and I'm like, I'm undiable at this point in time. She's like, everybody's dying at some point. But I feel like I'm going to be here for at least another 50 years because of the things that I've gone through. I'm very resilient. There's nothing that's gotten me to the point where I will give up, or give in. So I honestly feel like I help a lot of people throughout my lifetime. And if I can help more people, that is what I'm going to do until I die.
Let me go back to the chat once again. Hi, New York. She says hi to us all. Everybody says hello to everybody. Hurt people hurt people. Yeah,
Very true.
that's true. That's very true. People, that's always been, even as young as when you're a baby. a baby will lash out if it gets hurt.
Yeah.
You
I
know,
mean, when
you
I
may
was
not
angry, I definitely took
yeah,
it out on people that
yeah,
didn't deserve it. I
yeah.
definitely did that.
You watch little baby videos and they'll get hurt and they'll react to it.
Right.
So yeah. Does anybody have any questions for our guest? Do you have any questions you wish to ask Mindy? And we will have her back. Uh, I'll talk to you off camera about that. We'll see if we can reschedule
For sure.
an
I'll
acting.
come back anytime to actually talk
Uh,
about films.
yes, we will talk about films. It started out promising. Then we got into this, but this is a great interview, and I just want to keep it right where it was at. But if anybody has any questions, feel free to drop them. And thank you all for coming by today. Um, this I appreciate that. Um,
And hello to
so your book,
everybody that's
your book,
standing by and talking to us.
I guess I will ask one question. I guess
Sure.
I can ask one. I guess I better get in one acting question before, because I'm sure because I sent this over to him, and I'm sure he's going to sit there and say, "Dude," and that is, how did you and Will end up meeting?
A friend of mine brought me into this film it was at the time called Scream Bloody Murder. And he and I think Julie, either he wrote it or he and Julie wrote that film. And it's now at Lionsgate. We're waiting for it to come out. And we're really excited. I'm really, really, really excited that it's at Lionsgate. We're just waiting for the distributing company to let it out. Sometimes people don't understand the process of films, and you get the film done, you get the film made, you do all the scoring that you need to do, all the credits, all the coloring, and it's a lot of money. Like, I don't think people realize how much money really does go into this. It's pre-production, during production, after production, and there's always costs that seem to come with it. So when it gets to distribution, you can almost let your breath out, but you still kind of holding your breath until it comes out, and then you're wondering how are people going to receive it? Hopefully they like it, but you never know what's going to hit a particular audience. And the next film that I'm doing is called The Killer Pizza Man, and that's with Will Colazzo again. So that one's going to be filming at the end of July. There's still space until the end of this week for Indiegogo. People have asked how do they sign up to do a scene with me, and that is a perk on there. It's $300 that some people have already bought and we're interested in. So I'm really humbled with that. And if they want different speaking roles or different roles, by all means, you can check out those perks. I'm still available. I still have a couple more, I think, that are open still left. And so that's how you do it. You go on Indiegogo or you message me personally and I'll get you there.
Just let you know too that let you know that Mindy will be the final girl in that, and so if you want to at least make it to the end of the movie, I probably recommend doing that $300 perk. I don't know if that's true or not, but I thought I'd say it to ensure the one thing I said was before you got here, I said, well, she looks like a girl that is not going to be the first one killed. That's for damn sure. She's not that type of girl. She's the one that's, it's going to be at the end, holding off the zombie horde while your ass gets off to safety.
Let's hope that I get a really good scene like that, because I don't play a weak woman in life, and I do never really want to play a weak woman in the films. If that's the role that I'm playing, I'm gonna have to really work on that. But I like stronger roles and kick-ass roles.
Have you met Nicole Butler?
Yeah, she's my great friend. Yeah.
I keep telling her, I says, you know what? I keep telling her over and over and over. I keep saying, you got to do a noir movie.
A what?
A noir movie.
A Nora?
Noir, a film noir, like a mystery, like Double Indemnity, or old fashioned movies from the 40s and the 50s.
I don't know what that is. I'll have to ask her what that would entail.
God.
She's filming right now, so I won't ask her till she's done with everything.
I always tell her this. Yeah, you got to be like the femme fatale. She's got to be the bad girl. I said that's what you need. You need to play the bad girl, and like Barbara Stanwyck did. And because up to that point, when I saw Barbara Stanwyck, she was always in the good girl role, and then when I
Right.
saw Double Indemnity, I'm going like, holy crow!
Well, I like
And
to
then
stretch, I like to play all different characters. That way it's a character range. Um, so I don't mind doing, other roles as well. So it's just interesting what people, when they meet me, like what they'll say before they're even putting me in the role. They're like, I think you should do this one. And I've gotten the craziest questions as far as like, will you do this? And it's like, sure, why not? There's obviously certain things I won't do, but there's a lot of things that I will do, and I think to stretch the imagination, it's for fun and it's using the imagination, knowing that it's going to be just fine when you're done. So
right.
it'll be
Well,
it'll be interesting how
I
Will puts my role and Nicole's role, because we're both in it.
will
How we're going to portray, because I don't even know yet.
Yeah, Will's from what I've seen from his films and hearing him talk, he's a straight shooter director. He's not going to ask you to do anything that makes you feel uncomfortable. He's not going to ask you to do anything that he himself wouldn't do.
Right.
And same thing with Brandon. Same thing with Brandon. Brandon's a hell of a director. He's underrated in my book. But he's not going to sit there and he's not into exploitation. He's in there to make a good movie with a good
Right.
story. So you're in good hands. I mean, you got your backlog is most impressive, and
Thank you. I appreciate
yeah,
that.
yeah, I think and I love fun movies like that.
I'm
The
pretty
Deep
humble
Dead.
about what I've been in and stuff like that. Like I say, I haven't been in much. I haven't done that
Yeah,
much yet. So,
yeah,
but
but
I've done
you're
quite a
busy.
few, a little bit.
Yeah, but you're busy. I mean, that's the thing is, though, it's like as soon as one project ends, you're going on and doing another one, and you're also in demand. I mean, this is your second film with Will, right?
Second film with Will, yeah.
So he loved you for the first time. He respected your work ethic, in your preparation, so he brings you back for the second one,
Right.
and then in a real a real test of faith, he's actually letting you do a scene with a non-actor. That I personally, myself, I I asked that question with Nicole. I had her on here and I asked this, so what's it like? And I also asked that with Sadie Katz too. It says, what's it like working with a non-actor in a scene? It's like because they bought the role. They bought the role and they get a chance. I mean, how hard is that for you to do? And
Not
Sadie
really
was
that
wonderful.
hard, because you want the scene to work out, and if you want the scene to work out the best, you're going to work with them, and everybody starts out. I think in my eyes, everybody's got to start from somewhere. So if we work together, then you get a camaraderie. And for me, when there's good chemistry in a film and you can see that on film, it even makes it better. So I don't have a problem working with people that have never done it before. I'm okay with it. I'm so used to being in a teaching role anyways, as far as being a nurse. And I've been teaching, actually in the military. I used to teach thousands of soldiers actually before we deployed, literally thousands of soldiers. I had to put in IVs. It was like, over 50 soldiers in one time, and we're banging them out, So I think I've been in a teaching role my whole life pretty much. So it's 31 years of medical knowledge and moving through different things. So I don't mind.
Let's see. Says, here's one. Um, oh yes, old school detective films. That's what a film noir is. And we have a question that says, "What's a technique that works for you in controlling your anger?"
Whew, that is a really good question. I was
I was going to say
actually
you.
having this discussion with somebody today, just before this, And for me, now that I've been looking at a lot of the Chase Hughes stuff, what he basically teaches is that if we have an like, basically, if we forgive ourselves and forgive other people, and we just see people as from the beginning, you can try to make up like a story about these people. But the biggest thing is when I got cut off the road, the other day, and I about almost crashed. Was I mad? Oh, yes. Did I do some things that probably weren't exactly the best model of myself? Yes. But then for some reason, the next time that it happened, I didn't react the same way. It was more or less like, all right, let me take this Chase Hughes thing on, and see if I can reprogram myself even to not react, but to respond. And the best technique I can say that is like honestly the best is to breathe. And people, because when you stop breathing here and you get all tight in your chest and you don't let out your full air, it creates anxiety and it creates more of that pressure. So for me, I'm also a Watsu practitioner, which means I get people in hot water in the springs, and I basically put floats on them, and then I do cognition training. So I get basically their body to move in ways that a lot of people don't really move. So when you're in hot water, I do massage therapy, which is called shiatsu, in the water. I have found that is a really, really good therapy, because I do that as well for people. But the other techniques that I've had, I like equine therapy, working with horses. And I also like art therapy, where I'm coloring in a mandala and writing. I mean, writing for me has been the most cathartic, and I have journals out the wazazoo. So for me personally, dealing with my anger head on is probably the best for me. And in the last couple weeks, I've really, really tried to work on it so that I am working from response versus react. Because when I react, oh, cracker jacks, I am like a detonated bomb, and I'm not nice when I'm angry. So I don't like to get angry that
I
often
don't know
because
very many people who are nice when they're angry. So I think we're all in the same boat. I guess it all depends how we show it. I mean,
I always
some people
like remind myself of the Hulk. You don't want to make me angry when it turns
yeah,
green.
don't make me angry,
Don't make
McGee.
me
Mr. McGee.
angry.
Yeah. All right. I tell you what, folks, we have hit our mark. In fact, we have gone way past it. So I'm going to go ahead and end this here on the Hulk quote. That's a good one. We will be back, and we will be talking with Mindy again in May. Mindy in May, I like that. We'll be talking with her about her movies and getting to that a lot more.
This has been great. Thank you, everybody who's stayed in with us and has actually had questions for us too. And if you want to get a hold of me, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn is where I'm at.
I'll make sure all those links are. I'll make sure all of our links, or her links, Mindy's links, are listed down below, and you can go and pay her a visit and say hello. We will be back. We didn't plan on this, but it happened anyway. But we'll be back on Thursday, and we'll be talking with rising actor Jake C. Young. He'll be here Thursday at 8 o'clock. I just booked this yesterday.
Nice.
Thank you, Scott. And we'll be talking with Jake about his career, including his brand new supernatural western Souls Chapel, which we'll be talking about as well as his career. And he also is he's also a relative of none other than Clint Eastwood. I think he's like a cousin or something down that line, but he is related, family related. And you can definitely see it in his face too. That's for sure. We'll see him on Thursday, 8 o'clock. And what else is there tomorrow? Let's see. I think that's it. That's our last show of the month. And then of course May 25th. There's the book, Mindy's book. May 25th, we'll be talking with Will Colossal Jr. and he will be here and we'll be talking with him. But thank you all for coming by, and stay right where you're at.
You guys in May.
Chat. I will talk to you guys. I'll see you guys on Thursday. Thank you again for your support, and we'll see you at 8 o'clock Thursday night. Peace. Let's see. Come on. There we go.